So let me try to defend something. I mean, there's so many different things one might be trying to do in philosophy. And I have thought of one way of stating the goal of a theory of meaning in the following way. We might just make it our goal, because we have to say what it is we're trying to do, and there's certainly lots of different things somebody might be trying to do. Here's what I thought of as being worth trying to do. On the one hand, describe what something such that if somebody knew that about a speaker, they would understand what the speaker was saying. And on the other hand, explain how such an interpreter could justify the claim that this was a correct theory without begging the question. And now that's where it becomes delicate, because you're suggesting that perhaps I do. And it's true that I mean, there's a little change in my views, or maybe it's not so little. I started out by imagining that what we could begin with was our ability to recognize when somebody was saying something that they thought was true. So in one sense that would be starting with the notion of truth. And I've shifted from that to rather being the basic data being that you could tell that somebody preferred that one sentence be true rather than another. But the difference between those I don't think would be what you're asking about, because both of them require the notion of truth.
Yes. Right.
Now, what question does this not beg would be the way to put it. And here's what I've said about that. Obviously, if somebody holds something to be true, that is, the speaker has the concept of truth, and if that's what I'm using to describe what they're up to, I have to have the concept of truth, and I, the interpreter, in one of the scenarios that I've described, have a language. So my task is just to figure out what the other person's language is. Now the starting point here is the extensional relation. This speaker holds this sentence true under such and such circumstances. Now, it's not as though this is going to take us from something non-psychological to something that is. So it's not trying to get rid of psychological concepts. But the idea, at least, is we'll have just this single qualitative relation. And on the basis of it, we'll end up with a theory that individuates the utterances of this person in terms of, let's say, assigning a propositional content to them. Now that's the progress, and in one sense, it's quite a lot. I mean, if you could do this, that would be a kind of progress. And in fact, I would say it throws a very indirect light on how somebody who wasn't into the system at all could catch on to it without yet being able to individuate any of the speaker's propositional attitudes, or let's say just one holding true. So if you could build this complicated...
Holding a sentence true.
But holding a sentence true,
Right.
where the interpreter doesn't know what it means.
Yeah, sure.
And the thought is, and this defense, by the way, if it's a defense, is in Quine, and that is, if what I'm detecting on the speaker's part is not cases where he's holding a sentence true, I won't get any theory that works at all. I just simply won't make any sense out of what they're doing. So I can try various things, and one might say it's not as laborious as that. In fact, for many, many reasons. I mean, when real people are learning to understand each other, they don't have to start with this. They start with an enormous advantage. So this is not an account of how people actually do it. It's rather an answer to the how possible question. So it seems to me that there are some questions that aren't begged. On the other hand, it certainly doesn't accomplish all the things that somebody might hope to do, such as reduce the intentional to the extensional, or something really ambitious and impossible.
Right. Well, I think I have had a more ambitious aim for a theory of meaning than what you have just described, and what indeed you've stated quite clearly in some of the things you've written. That is to say, well, fundamentally, I want the theory of meaning simply to explain how language functions. But let me put it by saying it is to explain what it is to grasp the notion of meaning. This is done, will be done, by taking some sample language and explaining what it is to understand that language. Once you know that, you can see what in general it is to attribute meaning to sentences, or to have the concept of meaning, because if you don't understand a language, obviously you haven't got the notion of meaning in the sense of linguistic meaning. And I thought that it's impossible to explain that in such, by assuming that the person whose grasp of the concept of meaning is to be accounted for. I'm sorry, I can't remember how that sentence began, but explaining, assuming that the person whose grasp of the concept of meaning is to be accounted for has in advance of the concept of meaning the concept of truth. I don't think, I mean, of course, I'm not denying that you could follow this strategy of attributing to the speakers of the language an attitude of holding true the sentences, but it's perfectly clear that they wouldn't hold any sentences true unless they understood what they meant.
Of course.
So I think it was in the light of that rather more ambitious aim for a theory of meaning that I was making that criticism.